So they look at me and I'm not a reflection of their faces. So I want them to see it in their books. I want them to see it in what we do. I want them to see it in their room. Like, I think it's so important because just like in your book, Son, You Matter, like our kids matter. And if they don't see their faces, they don't hear themselves. How can you say you matter when they don't see themselves?
No matter where you come from or what challenges you face, remember that you have the power to transform your life. We're bringing you the most inspiring stories and voices from authors who are indeed powerful forces for the culture in their work. These interviews will keep you believing in yourself, inspire you to keep pushing forward, and most importantly, never ever stop dreaming. It's your boy, Uncle Kolby, and this is the Kolby Kulture Show. Yo, what's cracking, Kolby Culture family? It's your boy, Uncle Kolby, your favorite uncle, and you're tuned into another electrifying episode of the Kolby Culture Show. We're all about bringing the heat with lively discussions, jaw-dropping stories, and the hottest takes on literature from our vibrant Black and Brown communities. Today, we've got another great author coming your way, but hold up, before we dive in, let's kick things off with this week's literary drop. This week, we're all about Power Moves by Sarah Jakes Roberts. Y'all, this is not just any book. It is a movement. Sarah has been touring, pouring into thousands of attendees all across this country, and it's been absolutely amazing to see. And get this, in her book, she lays down the blueprint to mastering your personal and professional lives with stories and strategies that'll have you making power moves in no time. If you're ready to transform your life, this book is your must-have. Trust me, you don't want to sleep on this one. As a matter of fact, if you're grabbing a copy of this amazing book, drop the hashtag Power Moves in the comment section right now. Again, that's hashtag Power Moves. And of course, head over to djkolbywashington.com, where a full review of this book will be posted ahead of next week's episode. This has been this week's literary drop. I am so excited to be welcoming to the show tonight the amazing Amy L. Watkins with 4 books captivating young minds, including a coloring and activity book featuring her adorable rescue dog, Sadie, also known as Nacho. Amy's stories are all about diversity, determination, and discovery. After 19 years lighting up classrooms, she's here to light up our show. Come on, without further ado, I want to welcome to the Kolby Culture Show none other than Miss Amy Watkins. Hey, welcome, Amy.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I am great. I'm so excited to be interviewing you today. I had the opportunity to meet Amy last year at the Kensington Book Festival, or Kensington Day of the Book, and it was absolutely amazing. She has been a huge supporter of me and just a bright light in this crazy world. And so I'm so excited that you are joining me on my show today. So first question, tell us just a little bit about yourself, and then let us know, when was your aha moment? When was that moment you said, hey, I want to become an author?
So thank you, first of all, for having me on your show. As you said, I've been a big supporter of you since I met you. I've been watching you do big things, and I appreciate all that you're doing. And I want to just kind of like start off by giving you a mention. Like, this is one of Derek's books that I share with my high school students. I shared it with them before we started reading Jason Reynolds' All-American Boys. So even though it's a children's book, I said, I'm going to start it off like this. Wow. I do support you in all that you do. And I do appreciate you for having me. I would say, I guess, kind of like my aha moment was, I was teaching, and, I'm always trying to find different books for our kids. And I found this one book that was called Have You Thanked an Inventor Today by Patrice McLaurin. And in the back, she had her email address, and I just sent her an email and I said, thank you so much for your book. I've been using it with my kids. They love it. And I was trying to find something to go along for Black History Month. but it also had inventors in there. So it went along with STEM. It went with Black History Month. It was kind of like everything all in one. And she said, let me do an author visit for you, do a free author visit. So we did it on Skype. This was before we were doing Zoom. And when she came, so then she came and then she did this like 3 or 4 more years after that. It became like a yearly thing and the kids loved it. And I think she gave me a lot of motivation to begin with, because I'm like, wow, look at her doing this, And so I think she really sparked it for me. And then I have a friend who his cousin during the pandemic wrote a book. And I just kind of shout him out for a quick minute too. This is CJ Reeves, his book, Point and Shoot. He's actually a photographer. And so in his book, he was teaching the kids all about photography, and I'm thinking like, my friend was like, you can do this. He's like, you're a writer, you're a teacher, you can do it. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, I saw his cousin did it and I saw Patrice did it. And I was like, I can do that, So they really got me going and was like, okay, this is something I can do. And then it was kind of thinking about what could I write about? And what happened was when we came back from the pandemic with the kids, I was teaching 2nd grade at the time. And we had this one little boy who would always come into my room, he's pretty much nonverbal. And they would try to walk him down the hallways and try to show him like where to walk and where to go. He always ventured into my room and they would say, no, we're not going that way. He'd venture into my room, and I didn't have any kids in at the time whenever he would come through. And I didn't really know why he was coming or what he wanted, but I would always show him my pictures of my Sadie, of my dog Sadie, and he would get this big smile on his face. And then he would just kind of walk away. Like that's all he needed, So I was like, if that's all he needs, I got you, And I always shared stories with the kids about Sadie, So then that's what I thought when I did my first book. I thought, well, I'm going to make it about her because we always tell the kids, write what you know. And I know Sadie, I know my stories with her. So my first story, this was my We Love Nacho. And so this story is all about the kids going through the adoption process like I did. So it's really my story about finding Sadie, but told through the perspective of the kids. And then I based the kids on my friends' kids who are Guatemalan and Irish. So I asked the illustrator to give the kids different shades of skin, different textures of hair, so I really wanted not only my students to see and hear themselves in books, but I wanted my friends' kids to see and hear themselves in books. So that really got me going. And at the time, when the kids came back from the pandemic, we were all kind of going through some things. And I think that not only for the student who was nonverbal, but a lot of kids, teachers, everybody was kind of going through some things where I feel people couldn't really express themselves. And so that was something I wanted to put in the book where I was trying to relate it to my experience of getting Sadie. Like when I first got her, she's chewing up my shoes, she's chewing up my books. And what's wrong with you? What do you need? What do you want?
Yeah.
And that's how it was with the kids. I feel like when we came back, we were all in masks. Like when we first came back, we couldn't hug, like it was so hard. And the kids, I think, didn't always know how to express themselves. And so sometimes, they get into little trouble and things like that, just like my Sadie did, and it's almost like they didn't know how to express themselves. And we as teachers had to figure out what they needed and kind of accommodate that, So the book, I was trying to put it into layers where it is an adoption story about adopting a dog, but I also wanted people to think about, that social emotional piece.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And it's so amazing. You talk about, the pandemic. It's so amazing how, even though that was just such a crazy time for all of us, but the stories that I hear about people either writing books or launching businesses or doing, these things that kind of got them outside of their comfort zone, so to speak. It's really mind blowing. I wrote my first book, the book that you showed, Son, You Matter. I wrote that during the pandemic as well. And so it's just so amazing how, those times of crisis, great tribulation, so to speak, can also spark creativity. And so, it's just amazing to hear that story. With your deep roots in education, how does your teaching experience influence the adventures that you create for kids?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So that was another thing with this first book. You'll see, I'm going to show you in the book, I have like these little notes like this in there. And this is something, when I wrote this book, we, as teachers, we're always trying to find books for our kids related to whatever we're teaching at the moment, And at that time, when I was teaching my kids writing, my second graders had a really difficult time with making lists. And they wanted to write out whole sentences and all of this. I said, no, guys, it's a list. It's just words, And so I thought maybe if I include that in the book, like I'm always thinking about what do they need, And so it's like, that was something to be like, look, it's just quick, it's just some words. And I included adjectives in there. So I'm an English language development teacher, which is formerly known as ESOL. So I teach kids who their first language is not English, right? And with that, I wanted to include some strategies for, like, for example, making lists, using adjectives, things that was language related, especially.
Love it. So let's talk a little bit more about your writing process. So you are a self-published author, right?
Yes.
So can you talk a bit about that experience? Because a lot of people that tune into this show are aspiring writers, and they want to start the process. They have an idea. They may have written some things down, but don't know kind of where to start and like how that process goes. And so, can you talk a little bit about just your experience in writing? Like, what was it like? Did you have the resources already available? Yeah, if you could just talk a little bit more about that experience.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. I told you I had my friend who was like, you can do this, you can do this. And I'm like, how? Like, where do I start? What do I do?
Yeah.
And his cousin, who I told you he wrote this book, he put together a little video, and I watched that video. It was like a little 30-second thing. And I just watched his little video, and I'm like, all right, you know what? Let me do some research about this. So I went to YouTube, which is what my mom always does. Anytime I call her and I'm like, hey, Mom, how do I? She's like, well, I go to YouTube and this is what I find, So I'm like, okay, let me see. So I go to YouTube and there's all kinds of things. So I found this one person on there who anybody who's looking, I always refer them to her. Her name is Heather Cash Art. Heather Cash Art has made a gazillion videos about I never knew how to use Photoshop. She told me how to use Photoshop.
Wow.
She told me how to upload onto Amazon. I mean, she walked me through every little step,
Wow.
I learned about the bleed. I formatted my books myself. I had the illustrator, but she showed me how to format. She showed me all of these things. So I just watched the videos and I'd stop, take notes, and I kept doing it till I got all the illustrations back, who my illustrator I found on Fiverr.com. So in that, I found out from going on to Facebook and getting into a children's authors group. And so within that group, everybody's sharing questions, sharing ideas. So I learned a lot from that, a lot from the YouTube videos. And then I just kind of pieced it all together.
Yeah. I love that. So for those of you that are watching that want to write books, you say, hey, I am a writer. I want to publish my first book. Listen, the resources are out there. You just got to do the research. And there are tons of videos, as Amy just mentioned, on YouTube that you can watch that will walk you through the process step by step. And so, I would say take advantage of the resources. Certainly you can email us at contact@djkolbywashington.com. I'm always willing to kind of help you or guide you along that process, because I feel like everybody has a book, has a story to tell. And so, if you need some support or just some assistance in that process, feel free to reach out. But thank you, Amy, for sharing that process with us. So diversity is key in your stories. From your perspective, why is it crucial for children to see themselves in others as well as experience characters that, speak their languages in books that they read?
Yeah, I think it's so important. I'm gonna keep showing you some books here, but I'm gonna take you back to when, and I think Busboys and Poets, because that's when I really started going to a lot of these author events where they would have authors there who would speak about their books, and really got me excited about it. And one of the books, for example, is We Can't Teach What We Don't Know. This is by Gary Howard. He talks, this is crazy. This is from 2005, 2006.
Wow.
And, he's talking about multicultural learning and about, a lot of white teachers teaching children of color and what we need to unpack, and now I feel like there's a lot more about anti-racist teaching, anti-racist in general, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like now we have more and more resources. And at this time, when I was just getting into teaching, this was really coming out. And I think as I look at our kids, I've taught at schools that were either predominantly Black or predominantly Hispanic. And I see my kids, and it's like, I want them to be able to see themselves where they look. And I'm white, so they look at me and I'm not a reflection of their faces. So I want them to see it in their books. I want them to see it in what we do. I want them to see it in their room. Like, I think it's so important because just like in your book, Son, You Matter, like our kids matter. And if they don't see their faces, they don't hear themselves. How can you say you matter when they don't see themselves?
Right.
Right. So I think it's so important. And I mean, one of the things was interesting. So my second book that I did is Nacho Loves Salsa. And in this one, Salsa is the cat. And so I really wanted to touch on like finding friends in unusual ways. And I really wanted it to be about like not judging a book by its cover and like getting to know people more than just how people look, And so in this one, I was telling my sister, I said, we have this little girl in my class. She has albinism. And I really wonder how that plays into the story of racism. How does that factor into it? And so I wanted to have one of the dogs to be an albino dog, a dog that has albinism, right? And my sister was like, why don't you include the little girl? She'd probably think that's so cool. I'm like, all right, well, now I got to change the script up a little bit. Hey, it's going to make it a few more pages, but okay, let me add it in and let me talk to her. And so I talked to her and was like, hey, I want to include you in my book. And she was this little girl, she, like the day she walks in, she's like, my name is Malia and I have albinism, and she just talks because her parents have taught her that way, where she's just able to speak on that. And so I thought, how often does she see herself in books, So I said, I want to include you in my book. And she's like, okay, she's all excited about it and everything. And I asked her mom, she's like, oh, that'd be wonderful. So it's just, I think it's so important for people to be able to see themselves in books. I think it's really important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for what you're doing and how you are providing space for people to see themselves. You're big on social emotional learning. Can you share how you integrate these lessons into your fun stories?
Yes. So I try to layer it in a little bit, because I want it to be fun. I want it to be like an easy read, but at the same time, I want people to take a message from it if possible. In the first book, it was kind of like when the dog is going through different things like chewing up the shoes and chewing up the books. It was that, like I was telling you, trying to figure out what kids need kind of a thing. And then in the second book, I did it through daddy's kind of giving some life lessons as to how to make friends and things like that. So I try to make it easy where it kind of just plays into the book, where it's not like a smack in your face.
Yeah.
I want you to know XYZ. Yeah. I want people to read it and kind of lightly pick it up. And again, because coming back from the pandemic, especially, I just felt like it was such a huge need, and I think it's still a need. Like, I taught elementary school for 19 years. I just switched to high school. And I love our high school kids. They're very, very sweet. But our high school kids are at that age where they're into their phones, right? And I think that the pandemic has something to do with that. But it's everybody. It's not just our kids. You know, everybody's in their phones. And if you're in your phones, you're not in somebody's face. You know, you're not looking at each other. You're not making the connections. So I kind of, hope to do that through the books a little bit.
I love it. I love it. Folks, we are talking to Amy Watkins, amazing author, amazing educator. It is indeed Teacher Appreciation Week. And so here at the Kolby Kulture Show, we want to acknowledge all of our educators out there. Thank you all so much for what you are doing. Thank you so much for your sacrifice, your patience, your energy, your time, your passion, all of those things. Thank you so much, because we would not be here. Our children would not be here. I would not be here if it wasn't for amazing educators like yourself. And so, again, Amy, thank you. Those of you that are tuning in, if you have questions for Amy, certainly drop them in the comment section. We're going to open up the lines in just a few moments to ask Amy some of your questions. But before we do that, Amy, I want to shift us a little bit. It is time for the Culture Quick Fire here at the Kolby Kulture. We like to keep things fun. We tackle some serious subjects, but we also like to have some fun. And so what Culture Quick Fire is I will hit you with the rapid fire questions and you blaze back with those quick, insightful answers. You ready?
You're ready.
All right, here we go. What was your favorite book as a child?
I will say Charlotte's Web.
That was a favorite of mine too.
Yeah. And that was not one I read myself.
Okay.
That was one that I remember in second grade, our teacher, Mrs. Andrulanis, would always take that book out at the end of the day. People were waiting for the bus, waiting to leave out. She'd always read a little bit. And so every day I'd be like, what's going to happen next? So I feel like she kind of gave me the joy of reading with that book.
Love it. One word to describe your writing style.
Oh, I would say, I'm going to give you 3 words. I'll say from the heart. Yeah, from the heart.
I love it. I love it. The best writing advice you've ever received.
I would say, just write. Yeah, because I think sometimes people get all up in their thoughts and want to write everything correctly. And I think the most important thing is to just put it down, just write, see where it takes you, clean it up later, just get your thoughts out, just write.
I love it. That's one piece of advice that I always give those that are starting on this writing journey. Just write. The editing, all of that, that will come later. Just get it out of your head and onto paper. I actually told someone that this morning.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Well, thank you for indulging me in the Kolby Kulture Quick Fire. We're going to play one more game a little bit later on, but I do want to open up the lines now, so to speak, for any audience questions. We've already received a couple of questions, but if you have any questions for the amazing Amy Watkins, certainly drop them there in the comment section. Those of you that are on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, or even X, certainly drop them in the comment section and we'll make sure to ask Amy those questions. But I'll go ahead and jump things off with our first question that came through. How do you decide on what you want to write about in your books?
That's a good question. So it's like we always tell the kids, write what you know. So that's why, I started off with writing about my dog Sadie and going through the process of getting her. And then I guess just kind of, like with the second book, I really wanted to get that one out because it was something that I felt was important for our kids, just in terms of making friends. And like I said, like not judging a book by its cover. That was important to me. And then the third book that I did, this is my Love is Golden. This one I did about my sister's dogs. And she's taking her one dog through the process of becoming a therapy dog. The other one, not yet. But so, it's like, it's stories that are happening. It's things that are actually happening to me or like to my sisters. So that's kind of where the ideas came from.
Love it. Love it. Our friend Jackie shouts us out. Hey, Jackie.
Hey, Jackie. Oh, she's here.
Yeah, another
Hey,
amazing author.
Jackie.
We got to get
She
you
is
on the show
amazing.
soon.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Second question that came through. What's the funniest feedback you've ever gotten from a young reader?
Oh, funniest feedback. Um, I mean, the kids always say like, "Oh, that's I have a dog, I have a cat." Um, they always say that kind of stuff. I would say this isn't. I mean, she's a reader, but she's in the book too. But I'm going to tell you, with my character, her name is Eudora in the book, but Malia. The funny thing about her is that I asked her about what she wanted to be on her shirt, and she said, can you help it to say "be kind"? And I
Oh,
said, "Oh, Malia, that's so sweet, of course." And then she said, "To pizza lovers." And I was like, "Okay, well, that's a little bit different." So I asked the illustrator to put a picture of pizza on there,
oh, I
but I
love
thought
it.
that was so funny. And so it's funny to me, like, the different connections that the kids make.
Yeah.
But yeah, she had me with that one.
Yeah, one thing that I've learned in this children's book space is that kids have no filter.
They
Like
have no filter. They definitely have no filter.
they will say what's on their mind and how it comes to them. They will say it. So
Yes, they
I
will.
love that. I love that. Okay, folks, we're gonna close things out now. Just one piece of advice, aside from just right, one piece of advice that you would give to, again, new authors, aside from just writing, but one piece of advice, especially, let me just add this caveat, especially those that are self-publishing.
Yeah, I would say don't put it off, just do it. Because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I have stories, I have books I want to do, I have thoughts." And it's like, I don't know what's holding you up, that, people, again, with like maybe being too much in your head, trying to get it perfectly done. We're thinking, I have to get an agent, I have to get a publisher, I have to do all these things. You don't. I mean, my first book I did in about 9 months. So it's doable. You can do it. You just have to start taking the steps and make it happen. you know
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Again, folks, we're talking to Amy Watkins, amazing author, amazing educator here today. We're going to provide her information on how you can stay in contact with her a little bit later. But before we do that, of course, in true Kolby culture form, we love to play games here. And we got one more game for you before we wrap, Amy. And that game is called The Word Wave. This is actually one of my favorite games. The way that this works is I'll say a word and you give us a fun fact or a quick tip related to it from your books. Okay? First word, friendship.
Forever.
Second word, courage.
Let's see. I don't know. You want me to give you a quote? You want me to give you one quick word? Let me see.
Yeah, you can do a word, a quote, or a tip related to your books.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna kind of turn into courageous. And I want to say, with the word courage, a friend of mine, Yvonne Brown, who I went to high school with, who was a high school teacher and also an author, who passed not long ago. She's somebody I always had courageous conversations with. So I'm going to take the word courage and turn it into courageous and say, never be afraid to have courageous conversations with somebody, because if you're not talking, you're not making change. So I would say have courageous conversations.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
If you're not talking, you're not making change. That's going to be a good quotable that we will be putting on our IG. If you're not talking, you're not making change. I love that.
And
next word, adventure.
Oh, adventure. Yeah. I've gone on so many adventures with my dog. So I would say my little advice on adventure is to just let things take you where it takes you. Don't be afraid. Just let your mind be free. Let your body be free. Just go where you need to go. Because once you go on different adventures, that's where your books, if you're trying to write, that's where your books are going to go. Just let your mind go and take those adventures.
Yeah. I saw a quote from a friend of mine on Facebook earlier where she was talking about traveling. And I know I'm going to mess up the quote, but essentially what it says was like, take every advantage that you can or opportunity that you have to
Absolutely.
travel, and then
Yes.
travel with your eyes open so that you can
Ooh.
experience all of
Ooh.
the greatness that, that space or that environment has for you. And so, yeah, I love that. Don't be afraid to go on adventures. Next word, learning.
Oh, learning never ends. I would say learning never, ever, 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 ever ends. It's funny, I'm now in my 20th year of teaching, and I told you I'm teaching high school for the first time. So it's kind of like being a first year teacher all over again. But it's like every year you learn something different. And I always try to let my kids know that, like, while I'm the teacher, I learn something from them all the time. So I think when you think of learning, it's cyclical. It goes around. It's not from one to the other. Learning is all around you, and it's in words, it's in art, it's all around you. We're
Yeah,
always learning.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
Teamwork makes a dream work.
Yes.
Is what I would say to that.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I mean, as a teacher, it's like we collaborate all the time. So we can't do anything without teamwork. And my books wouldn't be possible without my illustrator. So there's always teamwork involved, and it does make the dream work.
Yeah, no doubt. Last word, imagination.
Let your imagination run free.
Mm.
Yeah, just let it go free. And I think that's one thing. It's funny you say that, because I was thinking with our kids today, I feel like sometimes they don't let their imagination run free because they have Google and they have all this stuff to type it up and look it up. And it's like, don't do that. Close the computer and just let your mind go. Just try to. But what does it look like? But what is it supposed to look like? No, just you think about it.
Yeah.
You think about it. So I would say, yeah, just let your imagination go free.
I love that. Well, thank you again for indulging me in the Kolby Culture Word Wave. Again, one of my favorite games, because I feel like it gets our creative juices going, and it gets us to, think beyond the word and how it applies to kind of our lives and our experiences. So
Nice.
again, I appreciate you. It's giveaway time, y'all. So I do encourage you to swing by Kolby Kulture Show on IG and Facebook. Drop a comment with the hashtag Magic in Pages. Hashtag Magic in Pages, and share your favorite part of today's chat with Amy. You might just snag a signed copy of one of Amy's fantastic books and some exclusive Kolby Culture merch. Last week, I was wearing our trucker hat and our t-shirt. We got mugs, y'all. Listen, you want this exclusive Kolby Culture merch, and so make sure you drop by IG or Facebook at Kolby Kulture Show with that hashtag Magic in the Pages, and share your favorite part of today's show. Amy, thank you for sharing your world and wisdom with us today. You're truly crafting magic that will resonate for generations. Can you tell us what's next for you and how our listeners can keep in contact with all that's happening in your world?
Yes. So what's next for me? Well, I'll be at the Gaithersburg Book Festival. So that'll be coming up not this weekend, but next weekend. That's May 18th. So you can find me there if you want to come check me out. As for events, that's the only events coming up in the future at the moment. But you can find me on Instagram at amy.watkins.author. And then you can find me also on my website, which is also amy.watkins.author. I'm sorry. Look at me. The website is welovenacho.org. Sorry about that. The email address is also amy.watkins.author@gmail.com. So email, Instagram, and website, welovenacho.org.
Yeah. All of that
Yes.
information
Yes.
will be in the description once we post the show, as well as the books that Amy mentioned. You are a true author and a true educator because you came with books in hand.
In hand. I bring them in hand.
Material. I love it. I love it. So we will make sure to post all of the information that Amy shared in our description once we post today's show. And don't forget, fam, next week, we've got the incredible Kendall Ray Johnson, the youngest Black farmer in Georgia, making moves and growing dreams, joining our show. Listen, this little girl has been all over the place, from Ellen to Good Morning America, and even caught the eye of Michelle Obama and Vice President Kamala Harris. I had the opportunity to attend a festival that she hosted a couple of weeks ago in Atlanta. And it was over 800 people. She just turned, I think she just turned 9 years old. And they gave her the key to the city, a full 10. This little girl is absolutely amazing. And so she'll be here talking about her new book and her inspiring journey. You won't want to miss this. But until then, keep chasing those dreams, keep turning those pages. And you already know what it is. Always keep it Kolby Culture. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow the show wherever you listen to your podcast. Watch and subscribe on YouTube, and please feel free to give us a 5-star rating. See you on the next one.